Hey guys, it's Zambash. I apologize for my voice in advance. I've got quite a cold right now, so I sound a little messed up. But the last mechanical explanation video went so well, people really liked that, so I thought I'd do another one. And another common term that I see being misused in the forums and on the Reddit and PoE in general is the concept of double dipping. So this time we're going to look at exactly what double dipping means. So, as you would imagine, double dipping means some sort of bonus you have is going to apply doubly or twice. In this case, the purest sense of double dipping, there are two sort of things people are referring to when they say double dipping. The main one, in which I think is the purest form of double dipping, is when it comes to increasing the damage of secondary effects. So in our example here for double dipping, let's say you have whatever skill deals 100 base fire damage and has a 100% chance to ignite, just to make things simple. So first, let's look at what is not double dipping. Spell damage, when it comes to ignites, is something that will not double dip. So let's say you've got your 100 base fire damage, 100% chance to ignite, and you've got 100% spell damage on the tree or from your gear or wherever. You take your 100 base damage and multiply it by 2 since you've got 100% spell damage. We're assuming this 100 base fire damage is coming from a spell and rather than an attack. That gives you 200 actual damage. In total, burns do 4/5 of the initial hit damage. So we take our 200 times 4/5 and we get 160 burn damage. So your total damage is going to be 360 between your initial hit and your burn damage. So there's no double dipping going on there. Now let's look at something that does double dip with fire damage. Or with ignites, rather. Fire damage is something that double dips when it comes to ignites. So in this case, same setup, but this time we have 100% fire damage instead of spell damage from our tree, gear, whatever. So it starts off the same. We take our 100 base fire damage, we multiply it by 2 to get our 200 actual initial hit damage. And then we take our 200 times 4/5 again, but this time this is only 160 base burn damage. In this example, fire damage double dips because fire damage increases the initial hit of fire damage, giving you a larger base ignite, but then it double dips by applying a second time to the ignite itself. So since we use fire damage instead of spell damage, this time we get to take our 160 base burn damage, multiply that by 2 again since we have 100% increased fire damage, and that gives us 320 actual burn damage. So this time we're doing, looks like 520 total damage instead of 360. So you can see that if you're going for an ignite build, you definitely want to try and get as much fire damage or elemental damage as well. In this case, elemental damage would also double dip rather than spell damage. Now we'll look at the other situation in which people sometimes say double dipping. I think it's somewhat confusing in this situation because it's not really applying in the same exponential way that it is for secondary damage over time effects like fire and poison. But nonetheless, people sometimes do use the term double dipping when it comes to damage conversion as well. So now in this example, we will have 100 base cold damage, and we have from gear, tree, whatever, etc., 50% of our cold damage converted to fire damage. So let's look at something that would not double dip when it comes to elemental conversion. In this case, elemental damage does not double dip when it comes to elemental conversion. And basically the point that we're getting across here, and why I don't really like people referring to this as double dipping, is because it's really just expressing the point that elemental damage, if you have 100% elemental damage on the tree, that is not the same thing as having 100% fire damage, 100% cold damage, and 100% lightning damage. So we'll take a quick look at how that works. Not double dipping, we've got 100% elemental damage. We take our 100 base cold, multiply that by 2 since we have 100% increased, and we get 200 actual cold damage. 50% of that gets converted to fire, so we end up with 100 cold damage and 100 fire damage for a total damage of 200. Now let's look at what would happen if you had, instead of 100% elemental damage, 100% cold damage and 100% fire damage from the tree. And again, I don't really like calling this double dipping because they're two totally different concepts, but if you do want to call this double dipping, this is how it works. If you manage to pick up 100% of these two separate elements rather than getting 100% elemental, this is how the calculation would work. You take your 100 base cold damage and multiply it by 2 just like before since we have 100% increased cold damage, and that'll give you 200 actual base cold damage there. Then we convert 50% of that to fire, so now we're at 100 base cold damage and 100 base fire damage. And then, since these, again, I don't really like the term double dipping for it, but if you want to call it double dipping, since these are separated rather than being combined into elemental damage, we then get to apply our fire damage again to the converted damage. So we've got our 100 base fire damage. Now that gets multiplied by 2 since we also have 100% increased fire damage, and that gives us 200 actual fire damage, meaning our total damage is 300. So again, you've got two different things people sometimes refer to with double dipping. One of them is the damage over time from secondary effects like Ignite and Poison, and the other is when it comes to damage conversion. Personally, I don't like using the term for damage conversion because it's a totally different concept than the double dipping when it comes to damage over time effects, but now you'll know what people are talking about when they refer to double dipping in damage conversion as well. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you want to know about all the things that can cause double dipping, I would just check out the wiki for whatever effect you are looking for. For example, if you're seeing what double dips with Poison and Ignite, there's a whole bunch of damage sources that you wouldn't think would double dip but actually do. Spell damage is not one of them, as we mentioned, it doesn't double dip, but check out that wiki so you can maximize the damage you're getting from your secondary effects. Hope you enjoyed the video, hope you found it helpful and informative. If you want to see more, be sure to check out my channel and subscribe to see what's coming up next. Thanks for watching, and have a good day in Rayclass.